All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to do a season overview on the Seattle Seahawks. And we still have the Rams, so we'll cover the Rams on Monday. But the Seattle Seahawks, in 2024, they finished with a winning record. And they kind of had a roller coaster of a season. They finished at 10-7, so they finished with the same record as the Rams, but the Rams had the tiebreaker over them. Because it actually came down to strength of schedule, because they both went 4-2 in the division. They went 6-6 in the conference, and they both went 4-1 against the AFC. I don't think that really matters. That doesn't matter, but still, they had the same records there. However, the Seahawks actually were 7-1 on the road in 2024, so that actually is impressive. But yeah, going into the year, the Seahawks new head coach. I kind of I gave them less wins. I gave them around, I think, 6 or 7 wins, and they started off the year strong. They started off the year 3-0 on the season. They beat the Broncos, and that was Bo Nick's first start. But then they beat the Patriots, and they beat the Dolphins at home without Tua. They won 24-3. But still, 3-0, and then they ended up losing 3 straight. They lost to the Lions. Then they lost to the Giants at home. I keep saying it. I don't know how that happened. How did that happen? Darius Slayton had, I think, one touchdown in the game. Daniel Jones was slinging it, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tyrone Tracy had a big game, 129 yards. Giants blocked a field goal attempt and ran it back for a touchdown, which was huge in that game. I really don't know how the Giants. I mean, that is how the Giants won, but still, it just doesn't make sense. And that kind of gave the Giants some optimism on the season, and then they proceeded to lose every single game after that, basically, until the Colts game. So, yeah, they did lose at home against the Giants, but then they lost at home against the 49ers, which the 49ers own them. So, but until later in the season. And then they bounced back after the 3-game losing streak. Geno Smith had 2 touchdowns in the game against the Falcons. They won 34-14. Then they lost a couple of home games. Josh Allen and the Bills came in and won 31-10. Then they lose that overtime game against the Rams. Geno Smith had a pick 6 in that game. So they went into the bye week at 4-5. But then they proceeded to win their next 4 games. They won at 49ers. Geno Smith, with little time left, scrambled for a touchdown. This was a 13-yard touchdown. And then the Seahawks got their revenge against the 49ers. Then they won a couple of games against the Cardinals. In between that, they beat the Jets. Leonard Williams had that pick 6 off of Aaron Rodgers. Geno Smith, in his return to MetLife, they win. That was an ugly game. And they were losing... they were losing 21-7, and the Jets were going down the field to score again, and then Rodgers threw a pick. So that was a momentum shifter. That was a very ugly game. But they won that. Then they lost a couple games to NFC North opponents. They lost to the Packers 30-13 at home. And Geno Smith actually left that game. And we saw a little bit of Sam Howell, and he was not great. And then they lost to the Vikings. And Sam Darnold threw 3 touchdowns against them, and now he's going to be their quarterback. And we'll get into that in a little bit. And then they won that ugly Thursday night game against the Bears, 6-3. And then they did beat the Rams in the final game of the regular season, but the Rams had already clinched the division. And they finished 10-7. And Geno Smith on the year, over 4,000 yards passing, 21 touchdowns, 15 picks, though, is a lot. Running the football, Zach Charbonnet had 569 yards rushing. Kenneth Walker had 573 yards rushing. Charbonnet had 8 touchdowns. Walker had 7. Geno Smith had a couple of rushing touchdowns. Jackson Smith and Jigba, who is going to be that number 1 wide receiver this season, he was basically the number 1 last year. 100 receptions, 1,130 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. DK Metcalf, 992 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns, no longer on the team. Tyler Lockett, 600 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, no longer on the team. So it'll be interesting to see what the Seahawks do to revamp that receiving core to go along with Smith and Jigba. But, looking at the defensive side of the ball, Leonard Williams led the team with 11 sacks. Derek Hall had 8. They did re-sign Ernest Jones, one of their players, and they also just brought in DeMarcus Lawrence. So, the defensive line could be a problem for some teams. And then looking at who led the team in interceptions, there was 3, actually. Kobe Bryant had 3, Julian Love had 3, and Tariq Woolen had 3 as well. And then, like I said, Leonard Williams had a pick 6 on the year of Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, the Seahawks, look, they finished with the winning record. Mike McDonald as the head coach, not bad. First rookie season, you just missed out. Or your first rookie season, your first year as a head coach, not bad. But they're hoping for better things in 2025. Now with Sam Darnold at quarterback. And in terms of their offense, they were kind of middle of the pack. Total yards per game, they were 14th. They were 8th in passing yards per game. 28th in rushing yards per game. And it's interesting because, with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, you'd expect those numbers to be higher. But, they both, I believe they both missed time due to injury. But yeah, they have a nice duo there with those 2 running backs. Points per game, they were 18th. Time of possession per game, they were 27th. It's going to be interesting now with Sam Darnold. How is that going to change? Personally, for me, I think the Seahawks upgraded at quarterback. And I think in more ways than one. I think because, Geno Smith is obviously getting up there in age. So maybe they wanted to go younger. Now, another YouTuber that I do watch did bring up that, Geno spent a lot of time on the bench. And, now with Seattle, he's kind of had that second chance. And, that kind of makes the age thing irrelevant. So I kind of understand that, but still, you still want to go with the younger quarterback. Geno's not going to play into his 40s, right? Maybe. So I do, and Sam Darnold is coming off a better year, and I feel like Geno has kind of declined these last couple of years. The first year with Seattle, he was solid, but then the last couple of years, I feel like he's kind of taken a step back. And Sam Darnold is coming off of a career year. Maybe it was a fluke. We'll find out. But I don't know. I think based off of the years they're coming off of, and the age, I think Sam Darnold was an upgrade. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say it was a significant upgrade, but I do think on some level it was an upgrade. And then looking at the defensive side of the ball, points allowed per game, they were 11th in the NFL, 14th in the NFL when it comes to total yards allowed per game, passing yards allowed per game. Seahawks defense was 11th, and then they were 16th against the run. Top 10 in sacks, though. And now you're adding DeMarcus Lawrence, who can get after the quarterback. And then they were 12th in interceptions. So defense, middle of the pack, top 10 in sacks. Like I said, you added DeMarcus Lawrence. You re-signed one of your guys as well. They did bring in, actually, Valdez-Scantling on the offense, and that's because they have Clint Kubiak now as the offensive coordinator. And he was with the Saints, and that's where Valdez-Scantling was. Valdez-Scantling was making a lot of plays for the Saints. So, a guy that, Sam Darnold could throw the deep ball to. But they do need to add more to Valdez. Going into the year with Valdez-Scantling as your number 2, they need to add to that. They do need to add to that. But the offensive line also was not very good for the Seahawks. That's another area that they are going to have to address. They did bring in a tackle in Josh Jones. But again, offensive line, receiver, that needs to be figured out there. Look, the Seahawks on paper, they're not a bad team. They need to add more to this roster. It's going to be different now without DK Metcalf next season. Tyler Lockett as well. Those were guys that had been on the team for a while. More so Lockett. Lockett's been on the team since 2015 when he was a rookie. But in the NFC West, right now, I think they're better than the Cardinals. They've owned the Cardinals for a while now. The 49ers are kind of going through some changes, but, I figure they're going to bounce back. And then you got the Rams. The Rams have given the Seahawks problems. Right now, I probably, going into next year, I think the 49ers are going to be better. I look at the Seahawks as the third best team right now. in the division. And we'll see how it goes. But look, 10-7 with the rookie head coach, and they still missed the playoffs. You would think at 10-7 you make it, but that's just how you had 3 NFC North teams make the playoffs last year, and they won 11 plus games. So, we'll see. What else they decide to do, what other moves they can make. I mean, listen, Cooper Kupp is out there. Maybe they bring him in. Maybe they're one of the other receivers they bring in. Cooper Kupp is going to make a decision very soon, so I think that's something we will talk about on Monday. Hopefully, if he does get signed, and then of course all the other stuff as well, the other quarterback stuff. But yeah, we will see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about the Seahawks, their season. What else do you think they could do this offseason? And did you like that they did move off of Geno Smith and bring in Sam Darnold? Let me know in the comments. But that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Make sure to leave a like and comment on the videos and subscribe to both YouTube channels. We greatly appreciate it. And until next time, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.